In the spring of 1813, Napoleon managed to rebuild his army with the help of young recruits and regiments from the countries that were part of his empire. Russian troops were also strengthened, supported by Prussia, which became the country's ally, and Austria, that would become one soon. Then German territories saw a large-scale war. This time, the Allies had greater forces, and though Napoleon secured several victories in the beginning, his army was getting weaker. The three-day Battle of Leipzig, also called the Battle of the Nations, was the final blow for Napoleon's remaining Grand Army that had shrunk twice its size by that time. Its remains retreated to the Rhine. In 1814, the Allies entered France. Russian, Austrian, Prussian and Swedish troops flooded the country. Corps and units were arriving from all destinations and headed to Paris. Napoleon had a small handful of troops, and everyone thought that it was the end. But suddenly, in February 1814, Napoleonic army resurrected and performed a number of splendid maneuvers that led to several victories in a row, at Champaubert, Montmirail, Vauchamp, striking the coalition armies. Nobody expected this. Nobody could ever imagine such brilliant maneuvers with so few troops. However, the coalition army was still larger, and while Napoleon was chasing one of the coalition regiments, the remaining bulk of the troops approached Paris and entered the city. Napoleon was told about this when he was near the capital trying to stop the Allies and defend Paris. But it was too late. The city was in the Allies' hands. But Napoleon still decided to attack the Allies from Fontainebleau with what remained of his army. By that time, the coalition troops were disproportionately greater, and one of Napoleon's marshals and his close friend, Marshal Marmont, contacted the Allies and reached a secret agreement with them. The only option for Napoleon was to sign an abdication. France returned to its pre-war borders. Then the Congress of Vienna assembled to redraw the map of Europe, while Napoleon was exiled to the island of Elba off the Italian coast with a small unit of soldiers. He was to stay on that isolated island as a pseudo-emperor. English vessels were patrolling Elba, giving Napoleon no chance to escape. But the former emperor succeeded in a daring escape from Elba, landed in France with several hundreds of troops, and headed to Paris. Unimaginable things began to happen. All troops that were sent to resist Napoleon took his side. His army was reinforced with every new regiment and finally triumphantly entered Paris. The Bourbons fled the country. Napoleon hoped that the Allies had already launched diplomatic fights against one another. Russia, that was becoming a major international player, was already opposed by a union between Austria, Great Britain and Royal France. Napoleon even forwarded reports providing the existence of the Union to Alexander I to expose his so-called allies and friends. The most astonishing thing was that Alexander showed these reports to the Allies and, saying that nothing had happened, threw the documents into fire. He wanted to get rid of Napoleon at all costs. The Russian emperor managed to form a new anti-France coalition. Up to 800,000 troops were marching to French borders. Napoleon attempted to resist the enemy avant-garde and even managed to crush Prussian troops at Ligny, but he lost at the Battle of Waterloo against England. This was June the 18th, 1815. Napoleon came back to Paris and abdicated for the second time. He was captured by the British, who sent him to a remote tiny island of St. Helena, a black cliff in the Atlantic, where he died in 1821. France saw the restoration of the Bourbon monarchy that would be overthrown by French people in 1830. While as for the Russians, they stayed in France after the abdication as occupation troops up to 1817. Only in 1817, the Russian military units began their withdrawal, and that was the end of the war.